Welcome to the ESS lecture series. Today's topic is perspectives and environmental values. In this lesson, we will explore how different environmental perspectives and value systems influence the way we understand, manage, and respond to environmental issues. Let's get started. A perspective concept in ESS. In environmental systems and societies, a perspective refers to the way individuals or groups see, understand, and interpret environmental issues and situations. It acts as a lens that shapes how people perceive environmental challenges and possible solutions. Perspectives are influenced by several factors, including values and beliefs, cultural backgrounds, knowledge and education, political systems and governance, economic priorities, and personal experiences. For example, communities that depend directly on natural resources may view conservation differently from industries focused on economic development. Understanding different perspectives is important because it encourages open-mindedness, reduces conflict, and improves decision-making. Environmental problems are complex, and considering diverse viewpoints supports more balanced and sustainable solutions. The example of building a dam illustrates this clearly. An ecocentric perspective may oppose the project due to habitat destruction and impacts on biodiversity. An anthropocentric perspective may support it because of benefits such as electricity generation, employment, and improved living standards. A technocentric perspective may advocate technological solutions to minimize environmental impacts while maximizing efficiency. The key idea is that there is rarely a single correct perspective. Recognizing and evaluating multiple viewpoints enables informed, fair, and sustainable environmental decisions. Environmental Value System, or EVS, refers to the worldview or paradigm that shapes how individuals, groups, and societies perceive and evaluate environmental issues. In ESS, an EVS influences the way people interpret environmental challenges and decide on appropriate solutions. Environmental value systems affect several important areas. They shape environmental decision-making by influencing choices about issues such as climate change mitigation or resource use. They guide resource management by determining how natural resources like water, forests, and energy should be used and conserved. EVSs also influence conservation approaches, affecting strategies for protecting ecosystems, biodiversity, and endangered species. In addition, environmental value systems help shape government policies through laws, regulations, and environmental planning. They also influence how humans interact with nature, affecting consumption patterns, lifestyle choices, and attitudes toward sustainability. For example, an ecocentric EVS may prioritize preserving a forest for its intrinsic value, while an anthropocentric EVS may focus on balancing conservation with human needs and economic development. A technocentric perspective may emphasize technological innovations, such as renewable energy systems, to address environmental challenges. The key idea is that EVSs reflect our values, beliefs, culture, knowledge, and experiences, ultimately guiding how we care for and manage our planet. Key idea in ESS. Different people view environmental issues differently because their perspectives are shaped by a variety of social, cultural, and personal factors. Understanding these influences is essential for addressing complex environmental challenges. Culture affects how societies value nature and define environmental responsibilities. Religion can influence beliefs about stewardship and humanity's relationship with the environment. Economic priorities often shape decisions about resource use, with some emphasizing development and employment, while others focus on conservation. Politics also plays a role, as laws, policies, and governance systems determine how environmental resources are managed. Education influences awareness and understanding of environmental issues, while ethics guide judgments about what is right or wrong regarding environmental actions. Personal experiences, such as living through floods, droughts, or pollution events, can strongly shape individual perspectives and priorities. For example, one person may advocate protecting all species based on ecocentric values, while another may prioritize economic growth through industrial development. Others may emphasize stricter environmental regulations, technological innovation, or environmental education as the best solutions. The key message is that environmental problems often have multiple viewpoints and possible solutions. Components of an environmental value system. An EVS is shaped by several interconnected factors that influence how individuals and societies understand, value, and respond to environmental issues. Culture influences traditional beliefs and practices related to nature. For example, many indigenous communities emphasize living in harmony with ecosystems and sustainable resource use. Religion can shape moral responsibilities toward the environment, with many faiths promoting stewardship and care for the natural world. Economic factors affect priorities regarding resource use and development. Some societies may prioritize economic growth and job creation, while others place greater emphasis on conservation and sustainability. Political systems also play an important role through laws, regulations, and environmental governance, such as policies on emissions reduction or protected areas. Education contributes by increasing environmental awareness and scientific understanding. Greater knowledge about issues such as climate change or biodiversity loss often encourages more informed decision-making. Similarly, the media influences public opinion by highlighting environmental problems and promoting awareness. For instance, documentaries and news coverage can inspire support for conservation initiatives and sustainable lifestyles. Together, these components interact to shape environmental value systems, influencing how people perceive environmental challenges and the solutions they consider appropriate. Understanding these factors helps explain why different societies may approach the same environmental issue in different ways. Main types of environmental value systems. EVSs are different worldviews that shape how people understand, value, and respond to environmental issues. The three main types are ecocentric, anthropocentric, and technocentric perspectives. The ecocentric perspective believes that nature has intrinsic value, and humans are simply one part of the ecosystem. Its priority is protecting biodiversity and maintaining ecosystem health. For example, ecocentric thinkers often support wilderness preservation, wildlife conservation, and limiting human activities that damage natural habitats. The anthropocentric perspective views nature as valuable because it supports human well-being. It focuses on balancing environmental protection with economic and social development. Examples include promoting renewable energy, sustainable cities, and environmental laws that manage resources responsibly while meeting human needs. The technocentric perspective emphasizes the role of technology and innovation in solving environmental challenges. It assumes that human ingenuity can overcome environmental limitations through solutions such as clean energy technologies, smart infrastructure, carbon capture, or even geoengineering approaches. These different EVSs lead to different priorities and solutions. Understanding all three perspectives helps us evaluate environmental issues more critically and develop balanced sustainability strategies that consider ecological integrity, human needs, and technological innovation. Ecocentric environmental value system. This perspective is based on the belief that nature has intrinsic value, meaning that all living and non-living components of the environment are valuable regardless of their usefulness to humans. Ecocentrism emphasizes that humans are part of nature, not superior to it. Key beliefs include respecting the inherent worth of all life forms, prioritizing ecosystem health over short-term human interests, and supporting biodiversity conservation. Ecocentric thinkers advocate living in harmony with nature while minimizing human impact on ecosystems. Characteristics of this worldview include strong support for sustainable lifestyles, opposition to excessive consumption and industrialization, and appreciation for natural processes. Real-world examples include deep ecology movements, indigenous environmental practices, wildlife preservation programs, and the establishment of national parks and protected areas to safeguard biodiversity. The strengths of ecocentrism lie in promoting long-term ecological sustainability, protecting ecosystems, and encouraging responsible environmental stewardship. However, critics argue that strict ecocentric approaches may limit economic development and can be challenging to implement in large, industrialized societies where competing social and economic demands exist. Ultimately, ecocentrism reminds us that environmental decisions should consider the well-being of the entire natural world, encouraging a balanced relationship between humans and the ecosystems on which all life depends. Anthropocentric environmental value system. This perspective places humans at the center of environmental decision-making and believes that nature has value because it supports human life and well-being. The main goal is to manage natural resources responsibly to achieve sustainable development and improve quality of life. Key beliefs include the idea that humans are the most important component of the environment, that natural resources should be used wisely, and that a balance must be maintained between environmental protection and economic development. Anthropocentric perspectives often support policies, laws, and technologies that help societies meet human needs while reducing environmental harm. Characteristics of this approach include promoting sustainable development, encouraging renewable energy and green technologies, supporting environmental regulations, and considering both economic and environmental factors in decision-making. Real-world examples include the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, renewable energy policies, sustainable urban planning, and community-based conservation programs that combine environmental protection with social benefits. The strengths of anthropocentrism lie in its practical and balanced approach. It recognizes the importance of human well-being while encouraging responsible resource management. However, critics argue that prioritizing human needs may sometimes lead to overexploitation of natural resources if environmental safeguards are weak. For example, sustainable logging practices aim to provide economic benefits while preserving forest ecosystems, but poor management can still threaten biodiversity. Overall, anthropocentric values seek to create a sustainable future by ensuring that environmental resources are managed wisely for the benefit of both people and the planet. Technocentric environmental value system. This perspective emphasizes that technology, science, and human innovation can solve environmental problems and create a more sustainable future. Technocentric thinkers believe that humans have the ability to manage natural systems efficiently and overcome resource limitations through technological advancement. Key beliefs include confidence that innovation can address environmental challenges, improve resource efficiency, and reduce negative environmental impacts. This worldview strongly supports scientific research, engineering solutions, and technological progress as drivers of both environmental improvement and economic development. Characteristics of the technocentric approach include faith in science and technology, a focus on practical and scalable solutions, and support for industrial growth combined with environmental management. Examples include carbon capture and storage technologies that reduce carbon dioxide emissions, nuclear energy as a low-carbon electricity source, biotechnology to improve agricultural productivity, and the use of artificial intelligence and remote sensing to monitor deforestation and climate patterns. Emerging approaches such as geoengineering and hydrogen fuel technologies also reflect technocentric thinking. The strengths of technocentrism lie in its ability to encourage rapid innovation, create efficient solutions, and address environmental challenges that may be difficult to solve through behavioral change alone. However, critics argue that it may underestimate ecological limits, involve high financial and energy costs, and create unintended consequences. For instance, while geoengineering may help combat climate change, its long-term ecological impacts remain uncertain. Overall, the technocentric perspective highlights the potential of human creativity and technological innovation to build a more efficient, resilient, and sustainable world. Comparison of environmental value systems. Ecocentric, anthropocentric, and technocentric perspectives each provide different ways of understanding environmental issues and developing solutions. From an ecocentric viewpoint, nature has intrinsic value independent of human use, and humans are seen as one part of a larger ecosystem. This perspective favors limited resource use, prioritizes biodiversity conservation, and emphasizes ecological sustainability. For example, strict protected areas and wilderness preservation programs reflect ecocentric values. Anthropocentric perspectives view nature as valuable because it supports human well-being. Humans are considered managers of nature, aiming to balance environmental protection with economic development. Sustainable development initiatives, such as renewable energy expansion combined with poverty reduction goals, illustrate this approach. Technocentric perspectives place strong confidence in science and technology to solve environmental challenges. Humans are viewed as capable of controlling and improving natural systems through innovation. Examples include carbon capture technologies, smart cities, and advanced renewable energy systems designed to support both economic growth and environmental management. These perspectives differ in their views on technology, economic growth, and sustainability strategies. However, understanding all three is important because effective environmental decision-making often requires combining ecological awareness, human needs, and technological innovation to achieve a more sustainable future. Environmental perspectives and decisions. Example: building a dam. This example demonstrates how different environmental perspectives shape decision-making about the same issue. Environmental decisions are influenced by environmental value systems, or EVSs, leading people to prioritize different outcomes. From an ecocentric perspective, a dam would likely be opposed because flooding habitats disrupts ecosystems, harms biodiversity, and damages river health. Since nature is viewed as having intrinsic value, protecting ecosystems remains the primary focus. An anthropocentric perspective may support dam construction if the benefits outweigh the environmental costs. Dams can provide drinking water, irrigation, hydroelectric power, and employment opportunities. This perspective seeks a balance between human development and environmental protection. For example, environmental impact assessments and compensation measures may be implemented to reduce ecological damage. A technocentric perspective supports the project with advanced mitigation technologies. Solutions such as fish ladders, sediment management systems, real-time environmental monitoring, and improved engineering designs are used to minimize negative impacts while maximizing human benefits. Ultimately, this example highlights that the same environmental issue can produce different decisions depending on values, beliefs, and priorities. Understanding multiple perspectives promotes more informed, balanced, and sustainable environmental decision-making. EVSs in real-world environmental issues. Environmental value systems, or EVSs, shape how individuals and societies understand environmental challenges and choose solutions. This is clearly demonstrated through two major global issues: climate change and biodiversity loss. For climate change, the ecocentric perspective emphasizes reducing consumption, lowering energy use, minimizing waste, and adopting low-impact lifestyles to decrease human pressure on natural systems. In contrast, the anthropocentric perspective supports international agreements, such as the Paris Agreement, where countries cooperate to reduce emissions while balancing environmental protection with economic development. The technocentric perspective focuses on technological innovations, including carbon capture and storage and geoengineering strategies, believing scientific advancements can mitigate climate impacts. For biodiversity loss, the ecocentric approach advocates strict conservation through protected areas and preserving ecosystems for their intrinsic value. The anthropocentric perspective promotes sustainable management practices that balance biodiversity conservation with human needs, such as community-based conservation programs. Meanwhile, the technocentric perspective relies on advanced technologies, including genetic engineering, habitat restoration techniques, and biodiversity monitoring systems, to reverse species decline and ecosystem degradation. These examples illustrate that different EVSs generate different responses to environmental problems. Understanding these perspectives enables more inclusive discussions and supports the development of balanced, effective, and sustainable environmental solutions. India-based examples of environmental value systems. Different EVSs influence how individuals, communities, and policymakers in India understand environmental issues and choose solutions. The Chipko movement represents an ecocentric perspective. During the 1970s, local communities, particularly women in Uttarakhand, hugged trees to prevent deforestation. This movement emphasized that nature has intrinsic value and that humans are part of, not separate from, ecosystems. Its approach promoted conservation, respect for biodiversity, and protection of forests, ultimately inspiring environmental movements across India and strengthening forest conservation efforts. Sustainable urban planning reflects an anthropocentric perspective, focusing on improving human well-being through responsible environmental management. Cities such as Chandigarh and initiatives in smart cities incorporate green spaces, efficient public transportation, and waste management systems. The goal is to balance economic development with environmental protection, creating healthier and more sustainable urban environments for growing populations. Finally, solar megaparks, such as the Badla Solar Park in Rajasthan, demonstrate a technocentric perspective. This approach relies on technological innovation to solve environmental problems. Large-scale solar energy projects reduce dependence on fossil fuels, lower carbon emissions, and strengthen India's energy security through clean energy generation. These Indian examples illustrate that different EVSs lead to diverse environmental actions and solutions. Understanding multiple perspectives helps societies develop inclusive, balanced, and sustainable approaches to environmental challenges.